The text lit up Alex's phone screen like a flare in the dark. "Come over. We need to talk." It was from David, his best friend Mike's dad. A simple invitation, but it landed like a stone in Alex's gut. Just weeks ago, a fleeting kiss by the pool had shattered the boundaries of their relationship, leaving Alex caught between guilt and a forbidden pull he couldn't name. Now, as he gripped his phone in the dim light of his Seattle apartment, the 22-year-old college grad felt the weight of that moment pressing down again. He could ignore it, pretend it never happened. But David's words demanded an answer, and Alex knew this meeting might unravel everything. He tossed the phone onto the couch, pacing the small living room. The summer heat clung to him, even with the window cracked open. It wasn't just the temperature. It was the memory of that night. David's hand on his shoulder, the warmth of his breath, the kiss that came out of nowhere. Alex had frozen, heart pounding, unable to pull away. He hadn't wanted to. That was the problem. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a spark that lit up feelings he'd buried deep, feelings he wasn't ready to face. Not with Mike, his best friend since high school, unaware of the betrayal brewing under his own roof. Alex grabbed his keys, the decision made before he could overthink it. The drive to David's house was a blur, the Seattle suburbs slipping past in a haze of streetlights and quiet lawns. His hands tightened on the steering wheel as he pulled into the familiar driveway. The house loomed ahead, its silhouette unchanged since the countless summers he'd spent there with Mike. But tonight, it felt different, charged, like the air before a storm. David opened the door before Alex could knock. At 45, he carried an easy confidence, his presence filling the space between them. "Glad you came," he said, his voice low, steady, but with an edge that made Alex's pulse quicken. No small talk, no pretense, just a look that said David remembered everything. They stepped into the backyard, the pool glinting under the moonlight. Alex's stomach twisted as memories flooded back. The cool water, the heat of that moment, the line they'd crossed. David leaned against the patio table, arms crossed, his gaze unwavering. "I haven't stopped thinking about you," he said, the words cutting through the night. "That night, it wasn't a mistake, Alex. Not for me." Alex's breath caught. He wanted to argue, to say it was wrong that David was Mike's dad, that this could ruin everything. But the truth clawed at him. He hadn't stopped thinking about it either. The attraction was real, undeniable, and it terrified him. "This can't happen," Alex managed, his voice shaking. "Mike's my best friend. You're his dad. It's not right." David stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that Alex felt the heat radiating from him. "I know it's complicated," David said, his tone softer now, almost pleading. "But I see the way you look at me. You feel it too, don't you?" The question hung between them, heavy and unavoidable. Alex's mind raced. He'd spent years pushing down these feelings, convincing himself they didn't exist. Growing up in a conservative family, he'd heard the whispers, disapproval cloaked in concern, the expectation to be someone he wasn't. He'd played the part. Good son, good friend, straight. But David's words cracked that facade, exposing a truth Alex wasn't ready to admit. "I don't know what I feel," Alex said, stepping back, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just know this could destroy everything. Mike, your family, my family, they'd never understand." David's expression softened, but he didn't back away. "I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm just asking you to be honest. With me, with yourself." The words hit harder than Alex expected. "Honest?" He'd spent so long hiding, avoiding questions about girlfriends, dodging his parents' probing looks. But standing here, under David's gaze, the weight of that denial felt suffocating. He wanted to run, to shut this down before it went any further. But his feet stayed rooted, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and longing. Before he could respond, headlights flashed across the yard. A car door slammed. Alex's blood ran cold as Mike's voice called out, "Dad? You out here?" Panic surged through Alex. Mike wasn't supposed to be back from his trip until tomorrow. Had he seen them? Heard them? David's face tightened, but he stayed calm, stepping back casually. "Yeah, out back," he called, his voice steady, betraying nothing. Alex's heart hammered as Mike rounded the corner, his easy grin fading slightly when he saw Alex. "Yo, Alex? Didn't expect you here," Mike said, his tone friendly but curious. His eyes flicked between them, lingering just a second too long. "What's up?" Alex forced a smile, his throat dry. "Just catching up," he said, the lie tasting bitter. Mike nodded, but there was something in his expression, a flicker of doubt, that made Alex's stomach lurch. The air felt thick with unspoken tension, and Alex knew this was only the beginning. As Mike headed inside to grab a drink, David's gaze met Alex's again, brief but intense. "We're not done," David whispered, so low only Alex could hear. The words sent a shiver down his spine, a mix of dread and desire he couldn't untangle. Whatever this was, it was spiraling, and Alex wasn't sure he could stop it, or if he even wanted to. Alex's phone buzzed on the passenger seat as he drove away from David's house, the echo of Mike's suspicious glance burning in his mind. He didn't dare look at the screen, certain it was David, and the thought alone sent his pulse racing. Last night's confrontation by the pool had left him rattled. Mike's unexpected arrival had cut their conversation short, but David's whispered promise, "We're not done," hung over Alex like a storm cloud. He pulled into a deserted parking lot near Lake Washington, needing space to think, to breathe. The truth was clawing its way out. He couldn't keep running from what he felt, but admitting it could cost him everything. The phone buzzed again, insistent. Alex grabbed it, his stomach twisting as he saw David's name. "Meet me tomorrow. Coffee shop on 15th. Noon, please." No pleasantries, just a plea that felt both urgent and dangerous. Alex's fingers hovered over the keyboard, torn between typing no and giving in. He'd spent years burying these feelings, dodging questions from his conservative parents about his lack of a girlfriend, laughing off Mike's teasing about finding the right girl. But David's touch, his words, had ripped that carefully built wall apart. Alex typed "OK" and hit send before he could change his mind, his heart pounding with equal parts dread and anticipation. The next day, the coffee shop was a quiet hum of clinking cups and murmured conversations. Alex arrived early, choosing a corner table, his nerves fraying with every passing minute. When David walked in, his presence seemed to shrink the room. He sat across from Alex, his eyes steady but searching. "I'm glad you came," David said, his voice low, careful. "I know last night was intense." Alex shifted in his seat, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "Mike almost caught us," he said, keeping his voice down. "If he'd heard anything, if he'd seen... God, David, this could ruin everything. He's my best friend." David leaned forward, his expression serious but not apologetic. "I know the stakes, but I can't pretend that night didn't happen. I've been thinking about you for months, Alex. Watching you grow into who you are now. It's not just some fling for me." The words hit Alex like a punch. Months? The realization that David had been carrying this for so long made his chest tighten. He wanted to deny it, to say it was a mistake, but the truth was undeniable. He felt something too, something real, something that scared him more than anything. "You're Mike's dad," Alex said, his voice cracking. "This isn't just complicated, it's wrong. My family, they'd never accept this. They barely tolerate me as it is." David's gaze softened, but he didn't back down. "I know what it's like to hide, Alex. I spent years doing it. Married, playing the part, telling myself I could ignore who I really am. But you make me want to stop hiding." Alex's breath caught. David's confession was raw, unguarded, and it stirred something deep inside him. He'd never heard anyone speak so openly about feelings he'd been taught to bury. But the weight of reality crashed in. Mike, his parents, the whispers of a small, judgmental community. "I'm not ready for this," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know who I am right now." David reached across the table, his hand brushing Alex's for a fleeting moment, before pulling back. "You don't have to know everything today, but you can't keep running from it. I see you, Alex, the real you, and I'm not going anywhere." The words were a lifeline and a trap all at once. Alex wanted to lean into them, to let himself feel what David was offering, but fear held him back. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need time," he said, avoiding David's eyes. "I can't do this right now." He left the coffee shop, his heart pounding, the weight of David's words chasing him. The rest of the day was a blur. Alex threw himself into errands, trying to drown out the noise in his head. But every quiet moment brought it back. David's voice, his touch, the way he'd looked at Alex like he was the only person in the world. It was intoxicating, and that terrified him. That evening, Alex's phone lit up with a call from Mike. His stomach dropped as he answered. "Hey man, you okay?" Mike's voice was casual, but there was an edge to it. "You seemed off last night. Everything good?" Alex forced a laugh, his throat tight. "Yeah, just stressed about job stuff, you know?" The lie felt heavy, but Mike seemed to buy it, launching into a story about his trip. Alex barely listened, his mind replaying the coffee shop, David's confession, the risk of it all unraveling. Later, alone in his apartment, Alex sat on the couch, staring at his phone. He opened David's message again, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He wanted to see him again, to talk, to figure out what this pull between them meant. But every step toward David felt like a step away from Mike, from his family, from the life he'd been trying to hold together. Then, a new message popped up, from Mike. "Hey, you free tomorrow? Let's hang at my place. Dad's grilling." Alex's heart sank. Another evening with Mike and David in the same space, the tension simmering just below the surface. He couldn't keep dodging this forever. The spark David had ignited was growing, and Alex knew it was only a matter of time before it burned out of control. Alex's hands shook as he parked outside Mike's house, the familiar driveway now a minefield of secrets. Mike's text had been casual. "Come over, Dad's grilling," but the invitation felt like a trap. After yesterday's coffee shop meeting, David's confession still echoed in Alex's mind. "I've been thinking about you for months." The words had cracked something open inside him, exposing a truth he'd spent years denying. But with Mike waiting, oblivious to the tension between his best friend and his father, Alex felt like he was walking into a storm. He took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Mike greeted him at the door with a grin, slinging an arm around his shoulders. "Dude, you've been weird lately," Mike said, half laughing. "Job stress still got you down?" Alex nodded, forcing a smile, but his stomach churned. Mike's easy trust made the guilt sharper, like a blade twisting deeper with every step into the house. In the backyard, the sizzle of the grill filled the air. David stood by it, flipping burgers, his movements calm but deliberate. When their eyes met, a jolt ran through Alex. David's gaze held the same intensity from the coffee shop, unspoken but undeniable. "Hey, Alex," David said, his voice steady, betraying nothing. "Grab a drink, make yourself at home." Alex mumbled a reply, joining Mike by the pool. They talked about old high school stories, plans for the fall, but Alex's focus kept drifting to David. Every glance, every casual word felt loaded, like a current running beneath the surface. Mike didn't seem to notice, but the weight of keeping this secret was suffocating Alex. He wanted to confess, to tell Mike everything. But the thought of losing his best friend, or worse, being rejected, kept the words locked in his throat. As the sun dipped lower, Mike headed inside to grab more drinks, leaving Alex and David alone. The air shifted, heavy with unspoken tension. David set down the tongs and stepped closer, his voice low. "You didn't text back," he said, his eyes searching Alex's. "But you're here. That means something, doesn't it?" Alex's heart pounded. He wanted to shut this down, to say it was over, but David's closeness stirred that same pull he couldn't ignore. "I don't know what it means," Alex whispered, glancing toward the house to make sure Mike wasn't back. "But this, us, it's going to hurt people. Mike deserves better than this." David's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "And what about you, Alex? What do you deserve? To keep hiding? To pretend you don't feel this?" He stepped closer, his hand brushing Alex's arm, the touch sending a shiver through him. "I'm tired of pretending. I want this. Us." Before Alex could respond, a shadow moved near the patio door. Mike stood there, his face unreadable, a six-pack dangling from his hand. "What the hell's going on?" he asked, his voice sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. Alex froze, his blood running cold. David stepped back, his expression calm, but his eyes flickering with worry. "Just talking," David said, too quickly. Mike's gaze darted between them, his confusion hardening into something darker. "Talking?" Mike repeated, his tone laced with suspicion. "You've been weird all summer, Alex. And now this? What aren't you telling me?" Alex's mouth went dry. The truth was right there, clawing to get out, but saying it would destroy everything. "It's nothing," he stammered, hating the lie as it left his lips. "Just catching up." Mike's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Alex thought he might push further. But he just shook his head, tossing the drinks onto the table. "Whatever, man. I'm not stupid." He turned and walked back inside, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. David started to speak, but Alex cut him off. "Don't," he said, his voice shaking. "This was a mistake. I can't do this." He grabbed his keys and headed for his car, his chest tight with panic. David called after him, but Alex didn't stop. He couldn't. The line they'd crossed was no longer just a secret. It was a betrayal, and Mike's suspicion was proof it was unraveling. Back in his apartment, Alex collapsed onto the couch, his mind spiraling. Mike's words echoed, "I'm not stupid." How much had he seen, heard? The guilt was crushing, but so was the longing. David's touch, his confession, had awakened something Alex couldn't unfeel. He'd spent so long hiding who he was, dodging his parents' expectations, their thinly veiled disapproval of anything different. But now with David, that facade was crumbling, and the cost was becoming clear. His phone buzzed. David again. "I'm sorry. I pushed too far. Can we talk?" Alex stared at the message, torn. Part of him wanted to run to David, to give in to the feelings he'd buried for years. But the other part, the part that loved Mike like a brother, that feared his family's rejection, screamed to end it. Now. Before he could reply, another text came through, this time from Mike. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. My place." Alex's heart sank. The storm he'd feared was here, and there was no escaping it now. Alex barely slept, his mind replaying Mike's sharp words. "We need to talk." The text had arrived like a guillotine, cutting through the fragile hope he'd clung to. He knew Mike suspected something. His best friend's piercing look by the pool had said enough. As Alex drove to Mike's house the next morning, the Seattle sky was gray, heavy with the threat of rain. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as he braced for the confrontation. Whatever happened today, there was no hiding anymore. The secret he'd kept with David was a ticking bomb, and time was up. Mike opened the door before Alex could knock, his expression cold, nothing like the easy grin Alex had known for years. "Come in," Mike said, his voice flat, leading the way to the backyard. The pool shimmered in the dull light, a cruel reminder of where this had all begun. David wasn't there, and Alex didn't know if that made things better or worse. Mike leaned against the patio table, arms crossed. "You going to tell me what's going on, or do I have to guess?" His tone was sharp, each word a jab. Alex's stomach twisted, guilt and fear colliding. He opened his mouth, but no words came. How could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? "I saw you and my dad last night," Mike continued, his voice rising. "The way you were talking, the way he looked at you, it's not normal, Alex. What the hell's going on?" The accusation hit like a punch. Alex's heart pounded, his mind scrambling for a lie, but the truth was too heavy to hold back. "Mike, He hesitated, then forced the words out. "Something happened. With your dad. A few weeks ago, by the pool. We kissed." Mike's face went still, his eyes widening with disbelief. "You're joking," he said, but his voice cracked. When Alex didn't respond, Mike took a step back, shaking his head. My dad? Are you serious right now?" "I didn't mean for it to happen," Alex said, his voice shaking. "It was a mistake, and I've been trying to figure out how to deal with it. I didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me," Mike snapped, his voice breaking with anger. "You're my best friend, Alex. You've been at my house since we were kids, and now you're... What? Hooking up with my dad? Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" Alex flinched, the weight of Mike's words crushing him. "It's not like that," he said, but the defense felt weak. "I'm confused, Mike. I didn't even know I felt this way until it happened." Mike's expression shifted from anger to something colder, disgust. "So what, you're gay now and you picked my dad to figure that out?" He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "I trusted you. Both of you." Before Alex could respond, the back door opened. David stepped out, his face tense as he took in the scene. "Mike," he started, but Mike cut him off. "Don't," Mike said, his voice low and furious. "I don't want to hear it. You're my dad, and you're sneaking around with my best friend. What's wrong with you?" David's shoulders slumped, but he didn't back down. "I'm sorry you found out like this," he said, his voice steady but heavy with regret. "I didn't want to hurt you, but what happened with Alex, it's real. I care about him." Mike laughed, a bitter sound that cut through the air. "Real? You think this is real? You're twice his age, Dad. This is a betrayal, plain and simple." He turned to Alex, his eyes hard. "And you're just as bad. Get out. I don't want you here." The words stung worse than Alex expected. He wanted to argue, to beg Mike to understand, but the look in his friend's eyes told him it was pointless. He nodded, throat tight, and walked to his car, the weight of Mike's rejection sinking in with every step. The drive home was a blur, his mind spiraling. By the time he reached his apartment, the news had already spread. A text from his cousin lit up his phone. "Heard about you and some older guy. Your parents are freaking out." "What's going on?" Alex's heart sank. Mike must have told someone, and in their tight-knit community, gossip traveled fast. His phone buzzed again. His mom. "We need to talk. Come home. Now." At his parents' house, the air was thick with judgment. His father sat stone-faced, his mother's eyes red from crying. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Are you with a man, Mike's father?" Alex's chest tightened. He dreaded this moment his whole life, knowing their conservative values left no room for acceptance. "It's not what you think," he said, but his voice wavered. "I'm figuring things out. I didn't want this to happen." "Figuring things out?" his father snapped. "This isn't something you just figure out, Alex. It's wrong. You need to fix this. See a counselor, go to church, something. You're not this person." The words cut deep, confirming every fear Alex had carried. He stood, his hands shaking. "I'm not broken," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm just trying to understand who I am. I'm sorry if that disappoints you." He left before they could respond, the door slamming behind him. Back in his apartment, Alex felt the walls closing in. Mike's betrayal, his parents' rejection. It was too much. He scrolled through his phone, desperate for an anchor, and found a local LGBTQ support group online. The stories there mirrored his own. Confusion, shame, but also hope. He signed up for a meeting, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. If he was going to face this, he couldn't do it alone. Alex sat in the community center, the hum of voices around him both comforting and overwhelming. The LGBTQ support group was smaller than he'd expected. A dozen people in folding chairs, sharing stories of rejection, discovery, and hope. His hands fidgeted in his lap, the weight of the past week pressing down. Mike's furious words, his parents' cold disapproval, and David's lingering presence churned in his mind. He'd come here seeking clarity, but the fear of facing himself still gnawed at him. The facilitator's gentle prompt pulled him back. "Anyone want to share?" Alex's heart raced, but he raised his hand, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I kissed my best friend's dad," he said, his voice low but steady. The room stayed quiet, no judgment in the eyes around him. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Now Mike hates me. My parents want me to fix myself, and I don't even know what I want. Saying it aloud felt like shedding a weight, but it also sharpened the reality. He'd lost so much, and the path forward was unclear. A woman across the circle nodded. "I came out at 25, she said. Lost my family for a while. It hurts, but finding people who get it, that's what kept me going." Others chimed in, their stories weaving a thread of resilience. Alex listened, the knot in his chest loosening slightly. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. Driving home, Alex's phone stayed silent. No texts from Mike, none from David. The silence was deafening, but it gave him space to think. David's confession had awakened something real, but it came with too much pain. Mike's trust was broken, and Alex couldn't ignore the cost. He needed to face this, not just for them, but for himself. The next day, Alex texted David, "Can we meet? Park near my place." PM. He chose a public spot, neutral ground, to keep things clear. When David arrived, his usual confidence was tempered by caution. They sat on a bench by the lake, the water rippling under a gray Seattle sky. "I'm glad you reached out," David said, his voice soft. "I've been a mess since Mike found out." Alex nodded, his throat tight. "Me too. But we need to talk about what this means. Mike's my best friend, and what we did, it broke something. I can't keep doing this." David's eyes flickered with regret. "I never wanted to hurt him or you, but what I feel, it's not just a mistake, Alex. I meant it when I said I care about you." The words stirred something in Alex, but he pushed it down. "I know you meant it," he said. "And part of me feels it too. But this isn't just about us. Mike's your son. He's my brother practically, and my family. They're already shutting me out. I can't lose everything for something that might not even work." David looked away, his jaw tight. "So what are you saying? We just walk away?" Alex took a deep breath, the decision settling in his chest. "Yeah, we have to. I need to figure out who I am without all this chaos. And you need to fix things with Mike. He deserves that." David nodded slowly, his expression heavy. "I'm sorry, Alex, for pushing you into this. I should have known better." He stood, hesitating before adding, "If you ever need to talk, I'm here, as a friend." Alex watched him walk away, a mix of relief and loss washing over him. It was the right choice, but it didn't make the ache go away. That evening, he signed up for therapy through the support group's resources, determined to untangle the confusion inside him. He wasn't ready to face his parents again, but he knew he couldn't keep hiding who he was. A week later, Alex texted Mike, "Can we talk? I owe you an explanation." To his surprise, Mike agreed, suggesting a coffee shop near campus. When they met, Mike's guarded posture said enough, but he listened as Alex spoke. "I'm sorry," Alex said, his voice steady despite the nerves. "I didn't mean to betray you. I was figuring out something about myself, and I handled it wrong. I'm gay, Mike. I'm still trying to understand what that means, but I never wanted to hurt you." Mike stayed quiet for a long moment, his expression softening slightly. "I was pissed," he said finally. "Still am, honestly. You and my dad, that's a lot to process. But you're my best friend. I don't want to lose that. Just give me time." Alex nodded, a flicker of hope igniting. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." As they parted, Alex felt a shift. The road ahead wasn't clear. His parents' rejection still stung, and the community's whispers hadn't faded. But he was starting to find his footing. Therapy gave him tools to navigate his identity, and the support group offered a space to be himself without fear. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it, not as the person others expected, but as himself.